And I'm Dave Sussman. Welcome back to Dave Sussman's Show. That's what we're trying to figure out, a name here, the Dave Sussman Show. We're going to stick with whiskey politics, but we've got some very exciting plans. We are going to be on a brand new platform. In fact, it may be on up as you are watching this now on maven.io. It's a great site, not just politics. It's economics and culture and history and a phenomenal group of individuals over at maven.io. And you can find us there as well as, of course, America's Voice News. And for your podcast, you can find us at ricochet.com and all of your podcast applications. So I'm delighted to have returning to us, and we don't usually do interviews with the same individual so quickly here, but for those that read me on Ricochet and know what's going on in the world of Karen Siegemund, Dr. Karen Siegemund, we're delighted to have you back. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Great to be back. Thank you.
So thanks for joining us. You just came back from Nashville, Tennessee, where you were on Huckabee's show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Such an honor and a privilege to have been on the governor's show. It was terrific.
Well, he had you come out, they flew you out, and it was a whirlwind couple of days for you to go on national television to talk about something that when we met a few months ago, and we were talking about American Freedom Alliance, of which
Right.
you are the president of, we didn't really talk much about your teaching and your history in academia. But a lot of news has taken place since we had you on.
That's right.
So just for our audience who may have not read or followed up with what's happening in the life of Dr. Karen Siegemund, give us a quick overview of what happened.
Well, you're right. When we spoke about the American Freedom Alliance, of which I'm the president. And I think we talked about our then upcoming conference on the left's long march through the institutions, which has been their long-term plan for the last several decades of going into various of our civic institutions, education being prime, Hollywood, entertainment, generally the news media, religion, family, and all of this. So we had our big conference in May. While being president of the American Freedom Alliance, and for a long time prior to that, I've been a teacher. I teach math most recently. And the last 4 years, I've been so lucky as to teach at the school where I went as a kid. So this school has a very close place in my heart. It's when I walk the campus, I remember me as a kid, I remember my parents, I remember my childhood friends. So I've been very lucky to be teaching math there these last several years. As it turns out, though, these two things seem to be in sufficient conflict that my school decided to not renew my contract. Literally the day after our conference on the Long March. So on May 5th, we're talking about how the left has infiltrated education, and on May 6th, I find that my job in education is gone. So kind of a shocking thing. Again, I'm a math teacher. I'm not a history, not that it should make any difference, but I'm a math teacher. I love my students. Again, the school it's an emotional connection for me, and nothing to do with my math, but they terminated my job.
The reason that they gave, from what I understand, was that it was due to, and the verbiage was, your opinions outside of the school.
Right. The first email said my widely publicized views, not in the classroom, but outside the classroom, as it happens. I am active on Facebook. I do have opinions. So do we all. And apparently, it was what was also in the email was that there had been numerous complaints over time, which I'd never heard of. Nobody had ever complained, not to me. I'd never heard anything from the administration. So normally when there's a complaint, a teacher would be called in and you have a conversation. That never happened. So I responded and said, gosh, that's kind of shocking because I never heard of any complaints. And then it turns out what was revealed to me next was that a fellow teacher of mine had found a speech that I had made as president of AFA, celebrating Western civilization. And this was cited as something that was problematic.
Celebrating Western civilization was problematic to this person.
Yeah.
How?
Because if I'm praising Western civilization as having brought about the greatest good, which I said, even to those not of Western civilization, that was my quote. The deduction that this teacher had made was that therefore I must reject those not of Western civilization, which is a bizarre deduction. It's a bizarre conclusion to draw. It reveals a real twisted kind of illogic. It's not true, because I don't feel that way. Nor was I mean, it seems to me that an issue like that would have been reason to call me in and say, hey, let's have a conversation. Or for that teacher to say, wow, I saw you give this talk at the American Freedom Alliance. What did you mean? But to have the one citation of anything that I do with AFA be something that I said that I'm proud of saying, but having it seen as hostile is really bizarre. Instead of being curious, or even, one might even go so far as to say, wow, that's pretty great, the work that you do outside of school. Do thumbs up on this,
But there was nothing. There was no, come on, let's have a sit down, what is this? No, there was no discussion, just the email.
Just the email, and the conclusion that this fellow teacher had drawn, that therefore I must reject those not of Western civilization. Nothing about, you do interesting stuff, or, we're a French school. We also believe in Western civilization, which 20 years ago they might have said, but now, they can't. They feel that they can't. It's really odd.
Let me just, for those folks that didn't see the previous interview, American Freedom Alliance, AmericanFreedomAlliance.org, by the way,
yes,
which you're president of.
Right.
This event that took place, I was there working with you, and it was just an incredible event. I've been to several of your events, and you had 200 guests, you had 20 plus speakers.
Right.
You had folks like David Horowitz and Bill Whittle and Rebecca Friedrichs. The list goes on and on and on, and I'm missing, I can't name all the people that are on there, but what was the purpose of this event and the overall of AFA?
Right, terrific question. AFA, our purpose is to preserve Western civilization. Boom, there we are. And I used to think that was a little bit hysterical. What are you talking about, preserving Westerns? It's not under attack. Well, it's very much under attack from a number of areas. But the conference was intended to look at specifically how it had been deliberately, in a coherent, overt fashion, over time, been under attack through this long march through the institutions. And this had been a plan when the Marxist economic revolution didn't happen. They decided to do it through culture. And that's exactly what they've been doing. So the purpose of the conference was, I hear all the time, wow, look what's happening in the schools, or look what's happening in the churches. We wanted to pull it all together for people so that they could see that, in fact, it's a coherent whole. And you can fight it much better, you can address it much better when you understand that all these little things that seem to be happening sort of randomly are not happening randomly at all. And if we are to preserve Western civilization, we really need to understand all the fronts on which it's being fought. Even though we didn't start this fight, we have to see where we have to fight back. And the fronts are everywhere. So that was the purpose of the conference. And yes, we had, I would add Brent Bozell, head of MRC, the major gun fighting against the corruption of the media.
Right.
And
Charlie
as you
Kirk.
said, Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA. Just an incredible Rich Higgins and Steve Coughlin about how our national security.
Trevor Loudon,
who's just all over this.
It was an incredible
issue.
event, and I want to get more into AFA as well, but I really wanted to kind of set up for our viewers exactly the fact that your organization isn't some far right-wing group of wackos,
right.
With tinfoil hats on.
No.
You have intellectuals. You have people that are well known in the media.
Right.
As the president, you write and advocate for essentially what you talk about, Western civilization, the values of freedom and liberty.
Right.
So this is what I want to get into right now, because what I understand, and we're going to continue this right after the break, but what I understand, this stemmed from a few people. You said that one person read the article or what you wrote at AFA, and a couple of other people may have complained about it as well. And there was in no way there was any there was no way for you to come and fight for your job. And I want to talk more about this, because this is getting really, really scary right now with what's happening. So we're going to be right back after the break. We have Dr. Karen Siegemund, President of the American Freedom Alliance. I'm Dave Sussman. You can find us at davesussman.com and AmericanFreedomAlliance.org. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Dave Sussman here, and we have Dr. Karen Siegemund. And I keep saying the word doctor. You weren't just a teacher at this private school in Los Angeles. First of all, give us a little bit about your history. I mean, Dartmouth, okay?
UMass Dartmouth.
And UMass Dartmouth,
yes.
Okay. And I mean, you go back a lot of years, professorships. You've been a teacher. Talk a little bit about your background.
Right. My bachelor's degree is in math. So I did a degree in applied math from UCSD, local girl, and worked for almost 20 years as an engineer and scientist, fighting against the Soviets, trying to find their submarines. So I was engaged in the Cold War, anti-submarine warfare.
Wow.
I know, cool, huh?
Red October stuff, huh?
Yeah. You have no idea how much Red October stuff. Yes,
wow.
Absolutely Red October stuff.
Who was that through? Which
I worked
department?
For, it was all Department of Defense, but a lot of it was through various agencies. It was all Navy related stuff.
Okay.
So,
what did you think of Sean Connery's Russian accent in that movie? I'm kidding.
Anything Sean Connery does is A-okay with me.
Or lack thereof.
Red October for 1,000 times. In fact, I was actually on the ship, the Reuben James, which at the end takes the Soviet sailors off their submarine.
Right.
That surface ship that comes to get them. I was on that ship.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what time period was this? Which
Cold War, 83 through about 80 to 90-ish. Even
you
a little
were
bit
right there
beyond.
at
Actually,
the zenith.
95. I absolutely was. The whole ramp up during President Reagan's time, I was absolutely involved in all of that. I did a lot of very top secret stuff. I went on a lot of sea trials, about 20 sea trials, with Navy ships and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I can't tell you. I'd have to kill you.
You'll have to kill me. We can keep it a secret. Nobody's listening.
I did very cool stuff. So I did all of that. And it's actually kind of interesting because I was one of the few women involved in that at the time.
Okay.
And I fought very hard to be able to do it. Now I look back with some regret because I'm not sure if all that did a lot of good. But it was interesting
What do you
times
mean?
anyway. I pushed very hard to, as a woman, to be on a Navy ship. I think it's a terrible idea for women to be on Navy ships, but that's a whole nother story.
Okay.
Have me on again, we'll talk.
Yeah.
But I was, and it was an incredible experience, and I learned such respect, immense respect for our sailors and all our men and women in the military. It was just an astounding experience. So I had done that for almost 20 years, and then we won the Cold War, and the company that I had worked for turned sort of towards whale-related things, which is nice, but not my thing. I'm happy other people do it, but not my thing. So I went back and got a master's degree at Boston University in international relations. So I had been in the defense side. Now I wanted to understand how we got to where we got to, diplomatically and historically. And so I got a master's there, and then I continued and got a PhD in education and American culture.
You got your PhD,
right?
So hence the doctor.
That's right. That's hence doctor. But you're right in pointing out I'm not your average high school math teacher.
Right.
I have a tremendous amount of experience as a teacher, but in life as well. talking to my students about things that I've done as a scientist, my experience with international relations, my experience traveling, languages, all of this I bring it into the classroom because I think it's important for them to also see us in the real world, we're bigger than what we are in the classroom. And that's always been something that my students have always appreciated. Politics aside, just knowing that the world that they're entering is a big and exciting place.
So the school that you're at, and I don't know if you're comfortable mentioning the name or not.
Yeah, at this point, it's le Lycée Français de Los Angeles.
Lycée Français de Los Angeles.
Right.
And this is the school that you went to as a child.
Yeah.
And it is in Los Angeles. It's a private school, which means they can basically do anything. You're employed at will.
Right, exactly. They can, and I respect that. We're on contract, and they didn't fire me. They just chose to not renew.
Renew the contract.
And if they had just said, gosh, Dr. Siegemund, it's been great having you.
Yeah.
Good luck in all your future endeavors. That would have been one thing, but that's not what it was.
Right.
It was based on my political views, my actions outside the classroom. I have not really heard much of anything inside the classroom from a student. Another student had said something, but not one of mine. So, and at no time was I brought in to discuss anything. So that's what makes this a little bit more interesting than just they let me go, I'm not really sure why. I know exactly why. And I know the quote about Western civilization, which is shocking to me. I mean, think about how crazy this world has gotten where that's not something where they would bring me in and say, that's fabulous. It's a French school, right? And we just had, how many months ago, Notre Dame burning. All weekend, I was waiting to hear from the school about what a horror this was. However you deem it, was it an accident or arson or terrorism, whatever. How can a French school not cite this as a tragedy of epic proportions? How can you do that? Well, you can do that by not actually valuing Notre Dame, by being scared, perhaps, of saying how important this building is to us. I just found it very bizarre to not express horror as a French school at this happening.
Do you believe that was just dealing with the issue gingerly because it's a religious institution? Are they uncomfortable with the religious aspect of it?
Perhaps. That was my original thought. It is a cathedral. I also think that there's a certain amount, we have it here, I think they have it there, shame of a national institution. Religious or not, we're not really allowed to express pride in America, right? I mean, Western civilization. I think it's difficult in France as well to express pride.
The idea of nationalism
Yeah.
is an anathema.
Yeah, exactly right.
And so if when I think of Paris and I think of the Eiffel Tower, I think of Notre Dame, I think of, Versailles maybe, but yeah, that's national, that's French pride. Where did this come from? Because you don't just see this in the United States, you see this all now through Western Europe.
Right.
The Statue of Liberty came from France.
Right.
What happened?
Yeah, leftism happened. The Long March happened. Yeah. This insidious infiltration into everything that said everything that you hold dear, you can no longer hold dear, which is really peculiar when you think about the French, who not that long ago, and maybe still, they wanted to do everything to ensure that words like le weekend was not allowed in French discourse. They did not want anything that was American imported. They didn't want our movies, they didn't want our words, they didn't want anything brought from us. They wanted to protect French culture, except they've been allowing French culture to be destroyed with various immigration policies and immigrant infiltration.
You're referring to multiculturalism.
I'm referring to multiculturalism. I'm referring to, you can't say anything good about Notre Dame, it being a Catholic church, but you've got to open your streets to Muslims. You have no-go zones in France where the French authorities are not allowed because we need to permit our Islamic immigrants, their refugees, to feel safe. Not our girls, but the refugees to feel safe.
Yeah.
So it's this weird discordant thing of we can't be proud, we can't speak up, we can't defend our own culture because that says that these people are bad and we can't say that these people are bad. And you're right, we're seeing this throughout Europe with them, Merkel, of course, throwing the doors open, and what's happening to their culture.
But she has openly admitted now may have been a mistake, at least tacitly. But I want to get into all of this because this opens up a whole can of worms, and it really is somewhat of an ominous direction as far as culture goes. So we're going to continue, and we're going to be right back after the break. We have Dr. Karen Siegemund here, who you can find at AmericanFreedomAlliance.org. Check out the website. It's fascinating. Great speakers on there. Victor Davis Hanson, one of our favorites. And I'll be right back. Dave Sussman here for you. And welcome back, Dave Sussman here, and we have Dr. Karen Siegemund, who is just talking about what is happening over in France. She worked for a French school, and for how many years?
This is year 4.
Year 4, and at the end of year 4, somebody saw a speech that you made at the American Freedom Alliance, and they said, you're not coming back next year. Let me first ask you this, because I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit here, because I just find the whole issue infuriating and fascinating, and also very indicative of exactly what is going on in our culture. Right. You are a microcosm of exactly what is happening right now with the crackdown on free speech on social media, and people being afraid to talk about their feelings, that if you are in any way right of center, you immediately have to don, the scarlet letter today.
Right.
And so you have never had a complaint at the school.
No.
Your students, how do they react when they learn?
Oh my gosh, my students, and I teach students across the spectrum. I teach students on the left, on the right, of every kind of belief. And I had students cry when I told them I was leaving, like literally crying, my younger ones. And all the rest are appalled and indignant, and I've been hearing from them, their parents. They've all said, regardless of their political leanings, this isn't right. Mm-hmm. I've never imposed my beliefs on anybody. I always urge them to be skeptical, to dig deeper. Around election time, I told them, look into your own hearts and minds and think of what you think is the most important to you. Read what the candidates say and have done, and then vote whatever you think is right. That's it.
So you never stood in front of the classroom and talked about politics in a partisan way?
I've mentioned one side feels this and one side feels that. I've never said this is right or this is wrong. Absolutely not. I urge skepticism. I've said one party, believes in smaller government, one party in bigger government, and to that extent, which I think is kind of indisputable. And
did you ever get questions from students that may have seen your life outside of school online?
I don't know if they've seen my life online, but I've always gotten questions from students. I had students run up to me literally after summer vacation. Mm-hmm. They've hoarded in their minds all these questions about current affairs that they were curious about. What do you think of this? I don't remember any specific details. But they wanted to know, because while we didn't speak politics overtly, they knew that my perspective was going to be different. And I think that's really important in a school, to have diverse, isn't that what they talk about, diversity? In the school, on the school's website.
Not diversity of thought.
Not any other kind. On the website, they say we want to show all our students, have them look at things with different perspectives. how can you do that if you've shut out the one different perspective?
Yeah.
So they always knew. They came to me the day after Donald Trump was elected president, and students said that another teacher said he felt it was just like another 9/11.
The teacher said this?
To students, not just, they overheard him, said to students this was like another 9/11. And I said, really? He said, it's like terrorists hijacked our planes and flew them into buildings and thousands of lives have been lost and buildings destroyed. Yes, that's what was said. My response was, here's my suggestion. How about if we see what the man does as president before we start screaming that the sky is falling and he's just like a terrorist? So that's the balance that I tried to provide.
Okay, but I have to...
I know. I'm used to it. It's shocking.
Was he reprimanded? Was he in any way...
No, not as far as I know.
Tisk?
I do
Nothing?
know he may have been reprimanded. He may have been tisked, but he got a contract.
He got a contract.
He's back. He's going back. I'm not going back. He's going back. We have teachers who wear #resist t-shirts. They're back. We have teachers who
In school?
In school, yeah. I'm with her t-shirts. We have teachers who encourage students to go to those marches. Remember the marches with the hats? I said, to me, hadn't we worked for decades to be more than our private parts? That was the extent of my commentary about the parades. Marches, protests, whatever they were. Teachers who we're all immigrants, which is completely beside the point because they refuse to make a distinction between legal and illegal immigration. But yeah, so they're being activists in the classroom. I am most certainly not being an activist in the classroom, but I praise Western civilization outside the classroom.
I'm going to just say this to you from an emotional standpoint. For me personally, when I heard what happened to you, I was furious.
Yeah.
I was really, really angry. And I don't get angry. I'm a pretty mellow guy. And the reason that I was angry, and thus we saw a tsunami of anger on social media with people who felt like I did when I learned it.
Right.
Okay? Was that the double standard here is forget about transparency. It's just in your face and they don't care.
No.
And the fact that you can have resist and I'm with her and Donald Trump was the equivalent of a 9/11 in the classroom and you don't speak about any politics in the classroom in a partisan way. But because you are involved in an organization which is focused on freedom and liberty outside of school, they have the audacity to let you go. How did you feel? Because I'm angry, it's all coming back again.
And thank you for that at the time and for now, because I've been kind of wallowing in it. And anger is really the right response because it's so destructive. And think about it from a number of point of views. It is the Long March. What they just did to me is an absolute leftist tactic. Anybody not
Long march to the institutions. Real quickly, explain that for our viewers.
How rather than fighting a revolution economically, it's all through the culture, and specifically through cultural institutions designed to pass on our cultural standards, values, and morals and mores. And that's the media, Hollywood, education, and our religious institution. They are designed for cultural transmission, right? And that's why the left has to take them over. I used to have a friend who said, the media and entertainment and education, these are where the left goes because they don't actually have to do anything. Well, in fact, these are the primary institutions for cultural transmission. They're not just not doing anything, they are everything. They're fundamental to our entire culture. That's why they flock to them, because they can be activists within there and affect the greatest change through these institutions. So it's not that they don't have to do anything, it's where the power lies. It's where if you want to change the world, you become a journalist, you become a teacher, you become, in Hollywood, That's where the power is. So that's what the Long March is, and I became a victim of it. So they have to shut us out. It's what the left does. I was an example of someone who offered balance. The left can't tolerate balance. It's why they have to destroy Israel. It's why they had to shut down West Berlin. Right. It's why anybody who speaks up at all outside of the echo chamber of the left must be silent.
And that's what they did to you. We're going to get back to this and find out what's next for you. Dave Sussman here, America's Voice News, Ricochet.com. Find us at davesussman.com. And if you want to check out American Freedom Alliance, check them out at americanfreedomalliance.org. We'll be right back. And welcome back, Dave Sussman here, America's Voice News, Ricochet.com, YouTube, and just basically find us online. Still continuing here with Dr. Karen Siegemund, who let go by her school, Lycée, Français de Los Angeles. Right. And, you know, I think if we, again, go back to what we were just talking about before the break, this level of anger that I and so many people that support you have right now. What is, first of all, they sent you an email.
Right.
Nobody sat you down in their office like an adult would and say, we've got an issue. Right. You got an email.
Right. It's shocking.
Okay, 4 years at this school.
Right, but it's also a beautiful thing to have it all in writing.
Well, that's another issue, and I want to touch upon that, but I don't know how much we can get into all of that right now. But the thing is that what is the response that you had at that moment? What did you say to them, and what from there happened afterwards? Because you're just finishing up with the school year right now as we speak.
Right. Today was graduation, which was excruciatingly painful. I have to tell you, when I first saw the email, I was shocked in a way, but in a way you just always sort of know that if you're on the right in a leftist world, you're always at risk. And I've always known I was vulnerable. And all of us, the outpouring that I've seen on Facebook or emails or phone calls or whatever, everyone says, yeah, well, of course, this is what they do. You mentioned I'm a microcosm. I am one of a zillion of us to whom this has happened. We all know that this can happen. So in a way, it was like, okay, so here it finally is. I was ashamed, I have to say. I've been feeling humiliated. It's a horrible thing to lose your job. But when you realize why, it's not because I'm a bad math teacher, it's not because of my skills at all. It's literally for defending Western civilization. It's literally for defending freedoms, including of those people who shut me out. It's literally for defending a value system that provides opportunities for everybody, including all those who've come from around the world to go to my school. Why are they there? We've got students from China, from Russia, from all over the world. They're here at my school. It's a great school. It's a French school. It's Western civilization at least what once was its best. How can this be a bad thing? So it's been shocking. But what pains me the most is for students, my students and other students, because the bubble has now been reinforced against people like me. So now students who, instead of being exposed to great thought, not that I'm not that much of a great thinker, but I at least provide another side, they're being deprived of that. And not only are they deprived of that, but they're being told, if you feel differently, shut up. And that is horrifying. With the lesson they just learned is if you feel differently from how everyone else does, you better just keep your mouth shut, or you might lose your job. Here we are, #resist. And yet, if you resist from the wrong direction, you're out. And it's a shocking lesson for them to learn.
A lot of people will say that's the result that they wanted all along.
Yeah.
Suppression of speech, suppression
Right.
of free
Right.
thought and opinion, and basically they will
Exactly
only
right.
accept anything that they agree with.
And it's hard to argue against that. And you had asked before one of my students' reactions. They come up to me and say, we just saw this happen. And I might have been on the left before because I thought they were the party of tolerance. I don't think that's true so much, Dr. Siegemund, because you were just fired. So they are seeing what's happening, which is horrifying on the one hand. On the other hand, they're having the scales taken from their eyes. And so that's very good.
What teachers in the school had anything to say? What did they say to you? I'm sure you had some friends there.
Yeah, no, sorry to see you go. That's it. And some of them may be telling me the truth when they say that. Others, obviously not everyone is telling me the truth when they say that. So no, and actually I was told in the same email, I make them uncomfortable. So teachers need a safe space now. What about me? I was not very comfortable, but I'm a big girl. I don't need a safe space. I'm a grown-up and I can coexist. I can listen to what they have to say as well, but they can't. The left cannot tolerate another voice. It's really...
These are grown adults,
Yeah.
educated adults
and
that are working with America's children.
Right.
And I would hasten to guess elite children.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a private school in Los Angeles,
Right.
French school. They wear uniforms, right?
Yes, we do.
They're
They do.
elite kids,
Yeah.
right? So your teachers that have been educated and hired to teach these children are telling they're telling basically the powers to be at this school that they are uncomfortable because of the presence of you who does not talk politics in school, but because of something that she does outside of school. I'm not too sure what it is, but I know it's not good because it's about freedom, it's about liberty. How far have we gone from what? Listen, I have to ask you this point blank. Everything that you've been putting into American Freedom Alliance, the march through the institutions. This is coming, folks. You're putting the speakers together to warn people. This is what's happening. In a million years, did you ever think this would happen to you?
No. Well, one of the things that I've always said with AFA and always is, as long as we can stand up to these steps towards tyranny, which really is exactly what it is. This is how tyranny comes in or has come in, by silencing free speech, by tamping down diverse thought. This is how it happens. And I've always said, now is when we've got to speak up before it's too late. And I've always taken pride in speaking up, and of course the left says, again, resist. We have to speak up. We tend, I think we on the right, we tend to retreat. I don't want to teach, it's taken over by the left. How are you just going to let them have it? We cannot let them have it. Who wants to be a journalist? It's all the left. I know, but at what point do we jump in? The work that you do is to counteract that. The work that I do is to counteract that. As long as we can stand up to it, we absolutely have to. So I am fighting it legally. I am fighting it.
What can you say about that right now? Because I know it's nascent.
Yeah, I have a superb attorney who is crafting. We're going to be fighting it in the courts. In fact, political activity, insofar as what I do is political, is protected, and so it's going to be very interesting. The email that I got saying about my quote about Western civilization, it could create problems. I've got to say, good, because we can't just withdraw from every sector, and that's what we've been doing. The left fights politically in every civic institution. That was the Long March, And we've let them. We can't let them anymore.
I have to, you got to take what happened to you, and obviously you see this from your own personal perspective. You see it emotionally, you see it financially, you're angry. Okay. And I'm sure you do because you're a brilliant person. Stepping outside of yourself, when you see what has happened to you, and then you hear about people on social media that are being deplatformed.
Right.
Or being throttled.
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
and so that people don't see us. Okay, this is not just education. This isn't just the Lycée Français de Los Angeles.
Right.
This is the tech titans. This
Yeah.
is the corporations.
Right.
This is Hollywood and our entertainment industry. How concerned are you from the standpoint of whether or not this fight is even able to be won?
Yeah, very concerned. But we've said this over the years, the worse they get, the more obvious it becomes what they're doing. James Damore
He was at AFA last year.
We honored him as a hero of conscience, and Google had fought to have it thrown out of the courts, and Harmeet Dillon, who had been his lawyer, won to keep it in the courts. Catherine Engelbrecht, who we also honored last year, just won her lawsuit, True the Vote. So I think the trick is to fight back. Where we fight back, we are winning. So many people don't, but we've got to, because when we do win.
You've lost your livelihood.
I know. That's very scary.
And I know you're scared. We've talked off camera. And I get it. And this is real.
Yeah.
This is real. This isn't political theater, folks. This is a real human being. And so if there's opportunities, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Okay. You can find Karen at AmericanFreedomAlliance.org. But this is what is, people see this and they think, well, I better keep quiet.
Right.
I can't afford to lose my job. I got a mortgage. I got kids. I got all of these things. So you didn't go out there at school and start a fight with somebody. They came after you because outside of school. Is this the suppression and the squelching of our speech and our ability and our freedom to say the things and the thoughts that we have? Again, I come back to this because I see this from my personal perspective, and I think that this can only have a detrimental effect on people and make people afraid.
Right. But we can't be. That's all. We can't be. But you're right. It's deplatforming, debanking, which winds up, I know so many people, I'm sure you do too, this isn't just you can't be on Twitter anymore. It's people whose livelihoods...
Uber won't pick you up.
Right, Uber won't pick you up.
Right.
And we're an SPLC hate group, so there's that too. It is, I've had people make this point, and I don't know that I'd go quite this far, but what's happening is like Kristallnacht, that if you are of a certain group, we will deprive you of your ability to earn and to be a full-fledged citizen, a full-fledged person engaged in civic life.
How do you relate that to Kristallnacht? The night the Nazis smashed all the windows
of Jewish stores.
Yeah,
exactly. So if you're a Jew, you can't. You're no longer able to survive in society. This was before the concentration camps, but it was the beginning of depriving them of the ability to earn a livelihood. And then came the ghettos and so on. But baby steps, right? It's always baby steps. And to me, my father grew up in Berlin, Kristallnacht, all of that. And so I've always been aware that tyranny comes in on baby steps. It's never with a wrecking ball. It's never with, just a tyrant standing there saying, this is the way it's going to be. It's always baby steps. And as long as it's still, it is my livelihood, which is horrible, but we're still able to fight back. We still do have recourse in the courts. hopefully.
Well, we're going to finish it up right now, but you do have a GoFundMe for your
I
legal.
do. Yes,
Tell
thank
folks
you.
where they can find that.
GoFundMe, conservative teacher fired, and hashtag I stand with Karen. I never thought I would have a hashtag in my life, but I do. And it really was born out of the outpouring, as you said. It's touched so many people that this is happening to, or that they're afraid that it's going to happen. So yes, for the legal fees, please find our it's shocking.
We'll put a link up for you.
That would be great. Thank
Okay.
you. And we really do. We have to fight back before we can no longer fight back.
And check out AmericanFreedomAlliance.org. It's fascinating, and I know that you're going to have a little bit more time now as well. So
Yes, I will.
lemonade out of lemons.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Thank you so much, and wish
My
you the
pleasure.
best of luck
Thank you,
with
Dave.
everything.
Thank you.
And we'll keep in touch and find out what's going on. And we'll keep you updated as well with what's happening with Dr. Karen Siegemund. I'm David Sussman. You can find us again at America's Voice News, YouTube, Ricochet.com, and check out our new platform, Maven.io. We'll be back again real soon. Cheers.